Hi guys, I'm joined here by Mike Knapp, one of the co-founders of Shoes of Prey. Mike, how are you doing?
Hi, Justin, good to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you.
Yeah, thanks.
So what I was really keen to do was just to have a quick chat with you, just talk about your experience with building and being part of a really great startup, hear about your journey a bit, and just get some tips around some different things that you guys did in terms of the retention and the selection and the reference checking and that as part of the process as well. So
Yeah, sure.
can you just start by just telling us, how you ended up, your journey taking you to Shoes of Prey?
Yeah, I've had an interesting career. I started off as a lawyer. I was working as a judge's associate, and then I went to Google and was working there for 4 years. And then Michael, Jody and I started Shoes of Prey in 2009. And we'd met back at university, so we'd known each other a long time. And Michael and Jody were married, and we always wanted to start a business together. So 4 years, we sort of gave ourselves 4 years to save up money, and then we started Shoes of Prey. And then I was there for 7.5 years, and then left at the start of last year. I decided that I wanted a new challenge. As much as I love women's shoes, it wasn't my passion, so I wanted to go do something else. And so I've been entrepreneur in residence at River City Labs, where we are today, for the last 6 months, and that program's wrapping up now.
Okay, all right, great. And for those that don't know, obviously Shoes of Prey, it's how would you describe it? Like ultra customized shoes?
Yeah, custom shoes on demand for women. So you go onto the website, you design the shoe, and then we make whatever you want and ship them to you in the world, wherever you are in the world.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
I certainly am very happy to know that I've got a business which is just purely online. So
physical products is it's a harder play, I guess.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
But the rewards are there. Yep. So hey, just tell us a little bit about the journey as well. With so you obviously one of the first three you came on board as co-founder. You guys built up your team, and you had such a strong culture. You were telling me some numbers as well in terms of how many of the team actually joined you guys when you moved over to LA as well. So talk us through that.
Yeah. So I was in charge of the software engineering team, and also I spent some years in China building our factory, which we built up to sort of 200 people when I was there. Hiring 200 people in China and managing them was a really great experience. On the software engineering side, we hired pretty much all of our software engineers from UNSW in Sydney, because we were based in Sydney originally. And the way that came about was I went and gave a talk at UNSW to all of their software engineers, and I said at the end of that, like, hey, if you want to come and work for me, we're having an internship program, we're going to pay people. And so we got two of the very best there, and then they end up hiring all of their friends, and they were just such an amazing group of people to work with. And as I was saying before, when we moved our office from Sydney to Los Angeles, 22 of the 25, I believe, packed up their lives in Sydney and moved to Los Angeles for us, which was great.
And thanks to you as well, some people end up getting on bended knee as well, I believe.
Yes, that's right. I had 4 weddings as part of that.
4 weddings.
Yeah.
Just for the visa requirements.
Yeah. To move their partners across.
Yeah, brilliant. Got to be done. And obviously one of the big challenges as well, and we've discussed this with a few people previously, when you're in a place like River City Labs, co-working space, your culture is pretty much can be the culture of the co-working space as well.
Sure.
Talk us through how you guys came and built it and settled on what the culture was going to be.
Yeah, so we were heavily influenced by a presentation by Netflix, which came about, I think, 2012, maybe 2011, I'm not sure exactly, but if you look up Netflix culture slide in Google, you'll find it.
Yep. And
it sets out exactly what the culture at Netflix is going to be. They're very prescriptive. Like, for example, they say, we're a professional sports team, we're not a family. So, if you're not here to be at the very peak of the world in terms of performance, then this is not the right culture for you. They sort of set out, like, these are the traits that we'll hire for, and these are the traits we'll fire for. Very, very prescriptive. Anyway, we sort of loved that idea because we realized we had a culture by default. So we had a culture, but there was no guidelines around it. So we had to sort of set some guidelines. So Michael, Jody, and I sat down. We took that culture deck from Netflix, and we basically just edited it to make it look like how we wanted it to look. Which wasn't as, I think initially we took the family approach, not the professional sports team, although we adjusted that over the coming years. I sat down and showed that to everyone on the team and said, this is the new culture. And people were a little bit confused initially because they're like, that's not the culture. And we're like, yes, it's not, but it will be. And within a few months, people were like, cool, I see how this works. Like, things have actually changed to be the culture that we sort of set out.
Yeah.
Which, was great. I think we did a really, obviously things that we, didn't do so well, but I think culture and hiring and managing people were things that we did quite well. And I think that's because Michael and I had spent time at Google, and obviously Jody had spent time in the advertising world as well. And we sort of took those ideas and sort of took the bits that we liked and discarded the rest.
Yeah. Okay. And with you two being at Google as well, so I mean, you would have picked up some great kind of tips and tools just in terms of internal communication and keeping one up to date. Like, what did you guys find that worked well for you?
So a lot of it was making sure that the manager would have regular meetings and updates with their one-to-one. So every week we'd have a one-to-one with every direct report.
Yeah.
Sometimes that would move to sort of once a fortnight, but there was always direct communication between manager and report. We would have a weekly. We actually had a daily stand-up. We moved that to weekly because we found that the daily was too much for the whole company.
How long would that go for?
15 to 20 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, so it would be like good news, and then there would be numbers, and then reports from each team, and then challenges or sort of updates from the team.
Yep.
So pretty standard sort of format. There's a really good video online actually if you search for 1-800-JUNK daily stand-up. I mean, that company is just really blown up. They're going so well. It's a junk company. They pick up people's junk, but if you look at their stand-ups, it's like insane. It's amazing.
Okay.
That's from a few years ago now, but it's worth a watch.
Yep.
So yeah, that's the main things. I mean, one thing I've realized recently is a lot of the things that we observed at Google came from this book, High Output Management, by Andy Grove, who is this Intel CEO. So that's a really fantastic book, and everyone in Silicon Valley talks about this book. So if you're managing a startup and you want some tips, I would read that book.
Yeah.
High Output Management.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll include that in the link for that also then. And I guess one of the final questions as well is, when you're making those hires, right, it's scary, right? You bring someone on board, a lot of the time they just interview really well and the reference checks could come out a little bit differently. I mean, you mentioned something about always just doing projects as well with people before they come on board. Can you tell us a bit more?
Yeah, that's something that we learned over time as we made different mistakes. Is that it's a good idea to always work on a project together with someone, and it's a good idea from their point of view as well to sort of suss you out as much as you're sussing them out. And sometimes that's easy if the person is a contractor or a freelancer, they can just come and work on a project for a week or two. If they're not, if they're in a full-time role, then you can either just have them do a project in their own time, but even better still is like get them to come in on the weekend on a Saturday and work together on a project. And often that's, you feel bad asking employees to come in, so often it's just the founders. You'll come in and you'll have a brainstorming session with them. You might get them to run it. Maybe they do some research and then they actually run the session, as if it's like their first day at work and they've got to present something or they've got to do some sort of activity with you. And within a few minutes you can figure out, is this person someone that you want to work with? Like, are we all vibing together and this is really cool, or is it like awkward and we're talking over each other and we're disagreeing already? So that's a little tip. And the other hiring tip is something I learned from Michael Fox, my co-founder, is always do really in-depth reference checks.
Yep.
And so he found this sheet from the book Top Grading, and it's sort of in the appendix D. It's got these really great questions. So if you're about to hire someone, particularly a senior person, make sure you do very thorough reference checking, because that will often turn up little nuggets. And one of the best questions there is like, what advice would you have for me as the manager of John or Mary in terms of improving their effectiveness?
Nice. And
then that will get some really interesting questions, sort of interesting comments, because they'll sort of move into like, well, John has some difficulty with communication, so I'd be coaching on communication. So if you ask the question sort of an indirect way, you can get sort of the nuggets.
That could almost be worth doing before final interview as well, just to get some good ideas of what to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously can't be done legally, but all right. I'll definitely have a look at that, and we'll create a blog on some of those questions as well for people. Yeah, great. So, cool. Mike, thanks very much. Appreciate you for sharing your journey, and all the best from here.
Anytime. Yeah.
See ya.